Yeah, it's interesting what you brought up because you're right. Like, the typical creative type is not very like systematized, not routine type. And I'm very much like that. Like I said, like I'm very much a hybrid between the two. And so I do have that part of me that's just like no routine, no whatever, just kind of go with the flow, whatever. And and so for somebody like that, the systems are really advantageous because it's like, hey, if you want to make this work. Okay. There's the side of it's like, I want to create art. And then there's the side of it that I want to grow my business. I want to make this work. Right. And so the systems are like, okay, if you're the artist type, if you're the creative type and you just, you have a hard time with those routines and stuff, like that's why you need it. You need a little bit of systems. You need a little bit of routine in order to get you to do it consistently and to do it in the right way and structure the videos the right way so that they'll actually be effective for your business. Otherwise, you'll end up just spinning your wheels, creating content that is, yeah, maybe it feels good to create and maybe it feels like it's your art and it's your creativity, but there's a reason there's a stigma of the starving artist, right? And it's because the starving artist does not learn the skills of entrepreneurship, right? And so it's advantageous to people like that. For somebody who's more entrepreneurial, okay, let's talk about someone who's like, and when I say entrepreneurial, what I mean is like somebody who's systems and business and like all numbers and like no creativity or anything like that. And I know that's not, everybody has a mix, right? But we're talking in extremes here just to illustrate a point. When you're talking about somebody like that, the systems become really valuable because I do believe that you can systematize creativity. And that's a really valuable thing for somebody who's not naturally creative. Okay. For people who are creative, we're like, yeah, the videos and the editing and everything, that all comes easy to me because I just know how to do that. They're like, that's easy. But for somebody who's just, very right, what would it be? Left brained, very left brained. And it's just like all numbers in business. Like, it's like, how can I be more creative? And when I say creative, a lot of times the word creative or creativity gets ascribed to like artists, painters, photographers, videographers, that kind of thing. When I say creative in the term of in terms of entrepreneurship, we're talking about innovation, right? And it is also a necessary skill to be successful as an entrepreneur. The biggest businesses in the world are very creative or they're very innovative. Okay, which is a better word for it. And so the goal is to be innovative. And if you can manufacture, if you can systematize innovation, if you can systematize creativity, and that's what I find myself doing a lot with like entrepreneurial types is like, okay, let me just systematize this for you, how to create high quality content. Where this is not your forte, that's fine. We'll help you to make that happen. Like follow these processes in this step, or here's an SOP for your team or your structure and everything and that kind of stuff. Makes it so they're able to like, yes, they can understand that. I can follow that system. And then by doing that, the output of it eventually becomes creativity, right? And it becomes content, it becomes art. On the flip side, for the artists, it's more like, hey, let's kind of rein in your skills and get you on a system so that you can do this consistently so that it can be effective. So it just kind of goes both ways.
I love that. Nice. So I'm curious, we talked a lot about the overall strategy of all of this, but can you give us an example of one of the like in-depth tactics of what those systems actually look like for someone and how they implement it?
Yeah, for sure. So, man, with every client that we work with, we typically start out by, first figuring out their personal strategy, their goal, their purpose. Like, what are we trying to accomplish with this? What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go with this? And then how does that apply to your entire life, really? Like we try to find the relationship of your personal brand to your business. A lot of entrepreneurs are very tied in identity to the business that they're in right now. And we try to help people get out of that and really think of like your personal brand transcends the business that you're in right now. And statistically speaking, whatever business you're in right now, you won't be in 10 years from now, because entrepreneurial, that's just what happens is we pivot and we go different directions, we try different things, and your brand can kind of be the thread that connects all of those things. And so typically that's the first thing that we try to figure out. And then that feeds into like, okay, well, what platforms are you going to post on, for example? So let's build a system around that. Like, okay, I'm just choosing like this one and this. I'm doing Instagram and Twitter, and that's it, right? Or I'm going to do all of these or whatever. And so getting clear on that. And then what formats on those platforms, what formats are you going to create? So we'll come up with 4 or 5 different formats for them to use by researching competitors, if you will, or other people in their industry who are going viral or whose content is working, what formats are working in that industry. Let's figure out those formats. We systematize things like content pillars. Okay, so what are the topics that you're going to talk about? And these, again, are not just your business or what you do for work. That's usually one of them. But then on top of that, what other things are there? Like I talk about creativity and art and business and family and entrepreneurship and personal development and all these things. So those are my content pillars. So we systematize that. And then I think about everything in frameworks and systems. Then we go down from that level now to, okay, the specific videos that you're creating, how do we script them? What is the system for scripting them? And let's follow that exact same script. So I have a framework that I use for that. In fact, I just launched a course that teaches that entire thing in depth. And so then that's like the 4-step framework that I use in almost every single piece of content that makes it work. It makes it go viral, makes it get attention, makes people want to watch it, makes people take action with it. So there's that. Then the systems for how we then repurpose content. So we call this the content waterfall. So now once you create one piece of content, how do you take that idea and turn it into like 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 or 15 different formats, right? Because I can write a newsletter, for example, and that newsletter could be turned into like 20 pieces of content and in different formats, videos and podcasts and interviews and carousels and images and long form copy and tweet threads. And those are all different formats, right? And then within the formats, you even have sub formats, which then it gets a little bit crazy because now within short form video, you have the talking head videos, you have green screen videos, you have B-roll with text over top of them, you have all the different types of formats that you can create. So how can I take one piece of content and turn it into many different pieces, many different formats? And then from there, you take one format. So a format maybe like a talking head short form video. Now it's like, what platforms can that format can be copy and pasted to? Can it be repurposed to? So if I create a talking head short form, that can go on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts without having to change anything basically on it. But if I were to take that thing and put it on Twitter, maybe need to tweak some things about the caption or the description and things like that. So now we're figuring out like where can I copy and paste, and then where do I just need to tweak a little bit so that I can move it across platforms. So you can see how one idea then turns into many different pieces of content. And that's kind of like the ultimate system. And that's not typically where I recommend people start. But you get to that point eventually where you're like, now I want to be omnipresent. I want to be in all places. And you're building that up and making that happen. So I know we're talking kind of surface level here, and we can go deeper into any of these if you want to. But the point I'm trying to get across is that there are lots of systems to how to do this, and kind of walking through like, okay, here's all the different systems that are in place that take somebody who's an entrepreneur, for example, and helps them to A, find their purpose, B, figure out how to talk about it, and then C, create the content and start making it happen and then grow their business from it.
Over 2,800 people have made it into the 2 Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.